My talk today is inspired from a combination of concerns and ideas I have about education, and these came together when I viewed Carol Black's documentary, Schooling the World. Black's documentary was originally going to be screened at this conference for all of you to watch together, but to allow for more time for exploration, it will be screened in the near future to a larger audience with an opportunity for a forum discussion. Schooling the World highlights the losses suffered culturally, socially and economically that forcible schooling has caused for the traditional society of Ladakh in northern India. So how did this educational system of ours establish itself as a yoke in our society? Well, it's mainly the result of waves of European colonial and missionary conquest spanning over 2 centuries. This pervading influence has resulted in the worldwide accepted notion that Western science, culture, and education are the zenith to which all societies must struggle to reach. This work, painted in 1872, titled American Progress, shows a young angelic woman floating high above the ground, wearing the star of the empire on her head. Though depicted as completely calm and serene, her mission is clear. With her left hand, she lays the electrical cables of oncoming progress, and in her right, she cradles a schoolbook. If you look closely to the bottom of the left of the painting, Indigenous Americans and buffalo flee from her. This expansion westwards resulted in thousands of Indigenous Americans being forcibly taken from their families and sent to government-run boarding schools. In one such school, the commencement speech announced, "Let all that is Indian within you die." The forcible removement of Indigenous children from their families to attend school for cultural reprogramming also occurred in Australia and Canada. In Australia, the removal of children who were mixed race from their Aboriginal families was practiced by law from 1905 until, in some cases, as late as the 1970s. Those children are now known as the stolen generations. So despite forcible removal no longer being practiced, there's still a pervasive emphasis that all children must be schooled to Western ideals to gain equality or to make any gains in the modern world. Activist, writer and linguist Helena Norberg Hodge has observed firsthand through her work the erosion of a number of Indigenous cultures and their livelihoods through the presence of foreign aid. She believes there's an assumption that Western education, Western knowledge, is something that is superior. There's an idea that we've evolved to a higher level of being, and that these people, that is the Indigenous people, however lovely they are, they're going to benefit somehow from this superior knowledge. In recent years, however, this educational model has come under increasing critique. Educational reformer Ken Robinson, for example, has argued that the current Western educational model is a throwback to the 19th century. It's modelled on the interests and needs of industrialism and on economic product, rather than being centred on concerns about students or their learning. This type of training in Schooling the World is shown to teach a narrow set of skills to master the small role that an employee is expected to fulfil within a workplace, a tiny cog within a global economic machine. Whereas traditionally, Ladakhi culture had always taught children the vast experiential knowledge and skill set needed to survive and therefore thrive for thousands of years in harmony with their environment, they now return home from school or work unable to do anything, disconnected from their culture and their traditional ways of knowing. An educational model which is primarily economic and does not consider the concerns of its learners, Robinson argues, is not educationally sound. I'd like to spotlight 2 areas of how this model thwarts students. Firstly, at its core, it lacks consideration for creating the conditions and space for students to be encouraged to stimulate original thought. Secondly, and interconnected to this idea of cramping thought and creativity, it encourages linear or binary ways of thinking rather than divergent or multiple perspective thinking. Binary thinking is when two conceptual ideas are posed as polar opposites to each other, rather than being seen as only two outcomes of a possible many. When we set up our students to continue this way of thinking, there is much lost on understanding the myriad of phenomena that are interconnected parts of the whole, and which help to explain the complexity that exists within the relationships between things. This way of thought railroads us into making snap judgments and oversimplifying the diverse complexity that exists in all phenomena and in life. One example of encouraging binary ways of thinking is through the practice of debating. The reason why I brought this one up is because I was a debater in school myself. And traditionally in debating, two teams are given an important global or local issue to consider. The team's main aims are to collect and develop all the arguments that will effectively help them win. While it can encourage some connection with the issues, emphasis on winning the argument shifts the key focus of what the ethical implications of the issues are, and the debate becomes much more about the art of persuasion and the personality of the person who's actually arguing. The aim, rather than encouraging deeper understanding of complex issues, is eclipsed by winning the argument at all costs. It's made me see the parallel with the Western justice system, which is heavily based on this premise. When we criticise our students for not being able to think for themselves, we need to help consistently create the conditions that develop their confidence and practice to do this. This educational dilemma also highlights the following question: that if the current paradigm is failing to meet the needs of our children, should we be continuing to export it to traditional societies? How do we as teachers begin to reshape the mould of this educational paradigm when it's one that we have already been a part of ourselves as students, and also one that's being currently taught to our students? Two ideas that come across in both Ken Robinson and director Carol Black's Schooling World is the idea of encouraging students to recognise and adopt multiple perspectives. What Robinson and lateral thinker Edward de Bono called divergent thinking, Carol Black refers to as the Buddhist philosophical concept of adopting the beginner's mind. The beginner's mind assumes that one is coming across an idea for the first time, even though you know it very well. Anthropologist Wade Davis refers to this exercise as pretending to be an anthropologist from Mars. Imagining ourselves in these roles, it's much easier for our students to generate questions and multiple possibilities, rather than just fixating on the right answer. These ways of thinking help students to generate and understand issues from multiple perspectives. It fosters original thought because it dissuades the temptation to make knee-jerk judgments about causes and their effects. The second way we can foster divergent thinking and move to break and then reshape this educational yoke is to focus on culture. Every culture on the planet contains aspects of caring, sound thought, resilience, inspiration, and innovation. These are aspects that should be shared, highlighted, and discussed regularly in our classrooms. Students can be encouraged to make consistent connections with their own cultures and appreciate the context in which cultures are compelled to develop. All of us and our students are products of multiple layers of cultures through our ancestry, which stretches back to ancient times. In this age of instant gratification for answers within a click of a button, it's important that we teach the basic elements of critical or divergent thought. For example, the context of why a people make a particular decision, and recognising the events which led to it, socially, politically. This leads to greater intercultural understanding and helps to develop, in the words of the IB, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot, young people who contribute to creating a caring, more peaceful world. Encouraging empathy and the beginner's mind, we can be more comfortable about generating questions and be content with multiple answers rather than fixing on only one. Recognising that interpretations in modern times also fit within that framework is important. For example, Chinese medicine is known in modern Western terms as an alternative. However, it's been traditionally the original medicine of China for thousands of years. It is just through one lens that it is seen as an alternative. It's important that we help our students recognise that all perspectives are generated by viewing things through particular lenses, and that these lenses can be adopted, then taken off like glasses while you put on another set. These can help enable our students to recognise the fluid and dynamic nature of culture and encourage them to celebrate the multiple layers of cultures they have been part of and are likely to be in the future. The recognition and celebration of culture in whatever we teach is vital to breaking the educational yoke. Through these practices, students generate mutual understanding and respect for multiple ideas and ways of doing things, and hopefully walk a path to becoming truly interculturally and internationally